Okay, so in class today we were comparing amounts, and we were comparing sweeteners. So we had aspartame and in blue mood today, aspartame and fructose. So what we saw is that it took a lot less aspartame than fructose to sweeten. So that means aspartame molecules are much sweeter than fructose. Although you could argue that the taste is much worse. I do not like diet sodas. And so the LD50, we can also talk about artificial sweeteners have been the subject of much debate, have been so over the years. Now, we've been looking at LD50, and I'm going to say is an acute measurement. Acute means at one time. So just like a quick dosing. So one dose of aspartame, you have an LD50 for that dose of aspartame. But that doesn't tell you long term over time if you're chronically, so chronic is different. So chronic is over time. So it may take a long time for something to be hazardous for you. If you just drink, a diet soda a day for a year, you might be fine. But if you drink 10 a day for 40 years, well, who knows how safe that might be. And a lot of people do drink a lot of diet soda. I have family members who drink an insane amount of diet soda. So, the soda industry says it's fine. Science is not as sure. So now it's interesting. Now going back to the acute, it's interesting to compare the LD50 for fructose and aspartame. So on an acute level, as we saw in class, it takes 1,900 grams of grams per 64 kilogram person for 50% of a sample. Again, we have to be careful with the LD50 of people who weigh 64 kilograms to die. So that's 2 kilograms of sugar. That's 4.5 pounds of sugar at once. You could not physically take that in. You would get sick. You'd throw up well beforehand. That's 48 cans of soda, or, depending on what you're drinking, a little more or a little less. Aspartame, on the other hand, the amount that would kill you is much less. It's only 64 grams. So 64 grams, I know we're looking like, aspartame, the actual gram-to-gram toxicity is 30 times more toxic than fructose on a gram-to-gram basis. But there's such a small amount of it in a diet soft drink because it's so much sweeter that it would take you approximately 280 cans, which, again, is an insane amount. I don't know how many cans a human being could drink in a day, but it would not be 280. So even though it's more toxic on a mass-to-mass basis because there's such a small amount, it's less toxic. So that's just an interesting way to compare toxicity. So going back, finishing up, how can you use moles to compare toxicity? The smaller the LD50, the smaller the LD50, the more toxic a substance is. However, we also don't know how that affects the long-term, what long-term effects. These are the chronic effects. And also, dose plays a large role in toxicity. Just like we saw with fructose and aspartame, the dose matters.